northwest corner of Canada, at the tip of the Yukon Territory bordering Alaska, lies Ivvavik National Park. Over 16,000 square kilometers of wilderness. A gift from the Inuvialuit to the people of Canada. The first national park to be developed as a result of the settlement of land claims. Parks Canada and the Wildlife Management Advisory Council for the North Slope ensure the protection of the wilderness values of this national park. The park also ensures the maintenance of Inuvialuit historical sites and lifestyle, where the sun remains above the horizon from the last week of May to mid-July. The need to protect the calving ground where the porcupine caribou herds are at their most vulnerable was one of the prime concerns in establishing the park. The annual migration in June brings the herds of 160,000 caribou from Alaska, where they have wintered in warmer climates, to the safety of Ivvavik, a place for giving birth and raising young. But there is something else in the park that gives the Inuvialuit people some concern. At the outer edge of the park, on the coast of the Beaufort Sea, is the remains of a former distant early warning site left over from the Cold War. The site has since been replaced by an unmanned short-range radar station that is managed by NASATUC on behalf of the Department of National Defense, with a thorough protocol in place to protect the fragile ecosystem here in the national park. Today, Parks Canada is investigating the possible contamination left behind from previous users of the land. Both the United States Air Force and the Department of National Defense of Canada, with their dew-line activities in the late 50s and 60s, and Gulf Bow-drill oil exploration in the 1980s. Parks Canada spokesperson and project co-lead Ed McLean introduces us to the investigative work being done this summer.
This is year 2 of a 2-year field investigation to look at possible contaminants left behind at this former dew-line station. This site, Barbie, Stokes Point, over the past 50 years has seen a whole host of non-traditional activities. In the late 50s and 60s, this site was one of 42 across Canada's Arctic, which was part of the dew-line site system for continental defense during the Cold War. Over the past couple of years, we've been determining what contaminants are here or may be here, the extent where they may be located, how big they are. We've been examining, looking for buried debris to understand if there are debris areas and landfills on the site. Ivvavik was established under the Inuvialuit Final Agreement. The whole basis of the Inuvialuit Final Agreement is a cooperative management approach where government and Inuvialuit work together to reach solutions to manage things, be it wildlife or national parks. I think this project is kind of neat. It kind of meshes with the spirit of the Inuvialuit Final Agreement, the way we're running it. We have established a steering committee to advise Parks Canada, which is made up of a number of Inuvialuit groups who are our partners. We have the Ivvavik Hunters and Trappers Committee, and we have the Ivvavik Community Corp, Inuvialuit Regional Corporation, and the Wildlife Management Advisory Council for the North Slope. They're teamed up with representatives from Parks Canada and the Department of National Defense North Warning System Office and the Royal Military College of Canada Environmental Sciences Group. Our group has been in operation since June of 2006, and everything we do out here, we rely on the steering committee to advise us on the best approaches, to where we look, who we need to talk to. Over the next little while, you'll learn about how we're involving elders and local knowledge to leave no stone unturned out here, to make sure that in the 2 short years we have to investigate this site that we've looked everywhere. So instead of having one department or one person going ahead with a complex project like this, over our past year that we've had the steering committee, we've been able to make really informed decisions, I think, which have made the project kind of proceed as smooth as it has.
Engineer Bill Liu gives us an overview of his work studying the permafrost with his Inuvialuit assistant, Andrew Gordon Jr.
This chunk is probably good. This is part of permafrost. You can see that's the soil, and you'll see the vein of ice in here,
yeah.
Right? And this is what we call, it's fairly ice-rich permafrost. That's what we're assessing, whether it's ice-rich or ice-poor. And when you have ice-rich permafrost, what happens is Once the soil start to fall, you have settlement, and the topography will start to change because ground will settle just because of ice melt.
Bill and Andrew are sampling the area's permafrost should the need arise to construct a secure landfill. Andrew, you liking the work? Is it good?
Oh yeah, it's pretty good, yeah. I was with Bill yesterday too. We're sampling permafrost down here in that area, down there. Dug about 8 holes, got about 8 or 9 samples.
How many weeks are you going to be out here?
We're going to be here for a couple of weeks, till about August 11th, I think.
I'm curious, out of the moisture that you're getting out of the permafrost, are you testing any of that for environmental contaminants at all, just to see what... Is that where you're getting your baseline from?
It does not. I'm not doing it,
yeah.
but other crews are doing it. Yeah, like Paul is taking the sample for environmental baseline is to look at what do we have at this moment of time.
My role or our role is to look for the chemistry in the soil. We're looking for inorganics, which would be metals, as well as fuel, and that's what we're looking for the baseline. The world packs we collect to analyze for the inorganic elements, and we analyze for hydrocarbons out of the jars.
In backfilling, it is very important that we put the sequence back and put the organic cover on top, and Andrew is doing an excellent job. After the test pit is done, you wouldn't even notice that there was a test pit done in here.
This summer, Parks Canada has brought in an archaeologist to help the team be aware of any cultural resources that may be present near sites of future cleanup. This way, the cleanup can be planned so as not to threaten resources protected within the national park.
When we first came to camp, I gave everybody a bit of an orientation as to the kinds of things that they might come across, showed them lots of pictures, and basically any of the testing that's being done, if they uncover anything, they call me, I go have a look at it. Well, I'm kind of working in tandem with Bill. We're hoping to keep the remediation to an absolute minimum, whatever's necessary to, affect safe cleanup of the site. Bill is looking at potential areas for landfills. I'm then going to those areas and doing an archaeological assessment, looking for any cultural resources that might be impacted, and then that would be factored into the decision making about where the landfill would go. So Judy's been working with me, and what we've been doing is putting in grids to do a systematic survey of the ground surface, and we've been walking 10-meter transects over fairly large areas, looking for artifacts on the ground, sod mounds, pieces of wood that may or may not indicate an old house foundation. And when we see things that we think bear further investigation, we've been flagging those and coming back and digging some test pits and looking for anything that we might uncover in them. And so far we've uncovered nothing at all.
Does that surprise you?
No, it doesn't. Up here, it's so far from the coast. Why would Inuvialuit people have been staying up here? They would have been wanting to be close to fresh water, close to the coast for traveling. It's just, I would have been quite surprised actually if we had found something up here.
Usually you could find whale bones, ulus, or any kind of tools you could have for what they made long time ago as they're coming from down in the coastal area all the way to Canada. I was raised up on the coast, and most of my life I go out to the coast every year, do my hunting and fishing. So would be interesting to find archaeology and see where it's around or buried, but so far we never come up with nothing.
Over this 50 years, there have been a whole host of land managers here. Department of National Defense and United States Air Force occupied the site, and then Indian and Northern Affairs, and then Environment Canada, and then a national park is created. So Environment Canada, Canadian Park Service, Parks Canada. So there's been a whole host of managers, and over this period of time, the cleanup efforts and investigation efforts at the site have been kind of a piecemeal approach. And about 10 years ago, Inuvialuit from Ivvavik and the Inuvialuit Regional Corporation, they were concerned that the cleanup here might not have been as complete as it should have been, and because this area is so important to Inuvialuit for fishing and whaling and the caribou that are protected here to put food on the table, and there was some concern that there might be something left from the Dew Line site days in the 50s and the Gulf Bow Drill exploration days, and so they asked Parks Canada if we could, complete a complete investigation, and finally we got critical mass of money from the Federal Contaminated Sites Program. We entered into a partnership with Department of National Defense and the Royal Military College, and all the cards, the planets came into alignment, and we had the right amount of staff at the time, and we were able to begin our investigation. And we started that last year, and this is our last field season.
Nick Batty is the project leader for the Environmental Sciences Group based out of the Royal Military College in Kingston, Ontario. They specialize in environmental site assessment in remote Arctic locations.
There's 42 Dew Line sites across Canada. 21 were handed over to INAC, Indian Northern Affairs Canada, and the other 21 were kept by D&D. And so the Dew Line cleanup project is well on its way to completion. Most of the western sites have been investigated and cleaned up, and they're now in the east. And the 21 INAC sites are currently in the planning phases. The typical contaminants on Dew Line sites amount to inorganic elements, so a suite of metals, PCBs, and fuel are the most common contaminants. We have been finding similar type contaminants here at Stokes Point, but in much smaller quantities than some of the larger Dew Line sites. So we did a risk assessment based on the concentrations that we found last year, and it was determined that Stokes Point is safe for both people and animals. This year we're focusing primarily on debris areas that we've assessed last year with geophysics. So we're assessing those subsurface areas as well. We're looking for fuel this year in the subsurface as well. So it's more of a subsurface assessment this year. A big component is getting local people involved. We have hired a number of local Inuvialuit to come help us. So they're out in the field taking samples with us and helping us with the program, which is a lot of fun. It's getting local people involved in basically their back door. So it's nice to get that involvement.
Oh yeah, we're just taking out some of those bag samples and putting the soil on it, and we're letting it dry overnight, so we could check it for PCBs and X-ray for any metals and whatever. Oh, I dug a test pit over here around that building and had to take about 10 samples from it, because when I dug into the soil it was black alright. About maybe an inch down after that it was black and strong smell of fuel. We're just still waiting for the soil to dry so we could analyze them, see what's all in it and that.
Don Ross and John Lucas Jr. are assisting the research team with biological sampling at the edge of the park.
This job, for me, I find is, you're coming out, you check out different places, and plus you're being out on the land, you're using your skills and helping the study. So with fishing, it's easy for us, and we know how to do it, so it helps out a great deal that way. And we're able to use most of the equipment that's out here, like running the boats, operating the boats, and setting nets. We've been doing that, since I was a young fella, and so it's natural to us to help them out that way. Like, it's easier.
What is it you're looking for, Don?
We just have a bunch of hooks at the bottom here on the end of this line here, and so we're trying to catch some sculpin.
Why is it you're looking at sculpins and not char or something else?
The sculpins are bottom feeders, so they're good indicators of what's happening on the bottom. Sometimes we do get the, fish sticks once in a while. We've tried the fishing line, and so we have baited hooks on there, and so then we'll try also with rod and reel, and hopefully we'll get lucky and catch some. Most of the beneficiaries that I know that are getting into the natural resource technology field, they're going to school for 2 years. So there's a program in Inuvik at the Aurora College, and there's also one in Fort Smith. And it's 2 years, hard studying, writing, doing a lot of reports. And once they receive their diploma, they're able to apply on positions, with Parks Canada or with other environmental groups. With the group of people that I'm working with now in Parks Canada, everybody's excellent. So whether it's out in the field here in the office, everybody has different knowledge, so you're able to gain a little more experience from them. And with the people in the office, it's great working with the people. Like everybody has their own specialty where they're really good at, and so you learn from them and they learn from you, so you're always learning something new every day.
This is my third trip back up to Ivvavik. I've worked in Kluane as well, but I did the original coastal survey of all these old village sites along the coast in '96 and '97 and haven't been back up here since then. Most of what we actually know about Inuvialuit use of the North Slope within Ivvavik Park has come from oral history information, testimony from elders.
Over the past 2 years, we've been kind of increasing our collection of local knowledge to help plan what we do every summer here. Before our first field season, we interviewed a few folks from Ivvavik who had some general experience in the area, and that helped us guide our first summer of investigation here. And then we ramped things up this spring where we had a long list of elders that Evelyn Storr interviewed. She's one of our steering committee members for the WIMAC, Wildlife Management Advisory Council. She interviewed some folks in Ivvavik and Tuck and got a better sense of how people use the area here, which is really helpful when we want to figure out if people are at risk, to understand how people use the area. And they're also very helpful to identify sites that we may not have considered, so we've added them to the list this year for our investigation. Some of those elders are coming out to the site tomorrow, and some of them, like Bill and Lucy Cockney, I mentioned earlier, they were living out here when the site was constructed, and Bill has already told us how, looking at aerial photos, how he built that runway, and it's going to be neat to kind of have him here on the ground to collect as much information as we can, to make sure we do a good job here. It's been an awesome project, and it's great to involve people and stuff and make everyone part of a project. So I think we have a better investigation as a result.
I raised my family here, and it was right after we got married we moved here to Herschel Island, and then we moved here. It was home. It'll always be home. Even though I don't live here anymore.
Just wanted to ask Bill, ask you a few questions about, one thing, when you said you used to bring your boat in and harbor it here, what kind of boat was that?
A schooner, Bonnie Bell.
Oh, that was the Bonnie Bell.
We used to come from Ivvavik to Herschel Island with it.
Was this the first job that you had for wages?
RCMP.
Oh, you worked for them first. Okay.
$2 a day to $60. Yeah, that's right. It used to be $2 a day in RCMP. And Dewlight hired me for $60 a day. Quite a change, eh?
Yeah. Lucy, how did you find life here at Stokes Point?
Really good.
Lots to eat.
Yeah.
There's always lots of wildlife in this area. Wolf, wolverine, foxes, caribou, of course.
Wolves.
Berries.
Lots of berries, lots of fish. The char runs by here to go to Babbage River.
It was nice.
You weren't lonely here?
No, I wasn't lonely. I had my kids to run after and look after this one. I never had time to get lonely.
The garage and the warehouse are actually still here, so we can have a look at those.
After meeting with the elders, Nick took them on a walking tour of several sites looking for possible areas of contamination left behind some 50 years ago.
So I've got a bunch of questions which I'll be just asking as we walk along. What I'm really hoping is that we can just talk about your memories of the site, just what things look like. A lot what I'm interested in is how things have changed over time.
This is where the garage used to be.
Yeah, it used to be right there.
Yeah.
Facing that way.
Into the pad, eh?
Yeah, into the pad. And last two big tanks used to be right there.
Yeah.
After they moved it to here, from the beach.
Bill and Lucy's first-hand knowledge of the old site helped to reassure the team that they were looking for contaminants in the right places.
Person doors, were they on the side?
Yeah, well, that's good door for
On either
emergency,
side?
yeah.
Okay.
After walking the immediate site, it was time to get in the helicopter and take a look at some of the outlying areas in question.
Having the elders visit yesterday was really valuable for us in helping us to put together the pieces of the puzzle, what we're seeing on the land here around Stokes Point, and helping us to understand some of the features that we're seeing.
Oh, is this your cabin?
No, this is Inuvialuit. His family just used it on and off. They all moved to Border Islands. Andy was a trapper on the land.
We're really happy at Parks Canada and also the steering committee that after 1 year of a 2-year investigation, the site is tested to be fairly clean. Based on what we found, the site currently poses no risk. Even though we have found some contaminants, they are not at such a level that could impact any of those things, people or the food that they eat. There is a couple of years for people to participate and give us their views, so we do a good job here to clean up the site that meets the needs of people of Ivvavik and other Inuvialuit who depend on the caribou and berries and the char and whales that are moving through the waters of the park. Our steering committee, which is made up of Inuvialuit and government folks, and we meet quarterly, usually in Ivvavik, and we advertise those meetings on the radio and posters around the community. And all those meetings are open to the public to come on in and see the business that the steering committee is looking at. In March of 2008, it's going to be a really big meeting where we're going to say, here are some ideas or recommendations we have, and we want your feedback. And I think that's going to be a really important time for Inuvialuit in the region to come on out. Over several months, basically there'll be newspaper ads that say a draft cleanup plan is underway, inviting anyone to submit their comments. It's important to point out that this park was a gift from the Inuvialuit to Canada, but as a national park of Canada, there is also interest from all Canadians about how we manage a park. So I think having an approach where there is advertised call for comments will allow other Canadians to express their views about what's right for a national park. So hopefully everyone can get a chance to participate and make their views heard.